In this video, we're recreating the build and drop from Waiting for Love by Avicii inside Ableton Live. We'll layer and introduce each instrument in the same timeline as the original track, building up the tension and energy into a full drop. Let's get started. Step 1. Set up the project. We'll start a new project in Ableton Live and we'll set the tempo to 128 beats per minute. Next, we'll set the key to F sharp minor. Press Tab to switch to the arrangement view. We'll then delete audio track 3 and 4. Step 2, we'll add the electric piano. Firstly, highlight the first 8 bars, right-click, insert empty MIDI clip. On the left-hand side, type in electric, select instruments, and we'll drag in electric piano basic onto MIDI track 1. On the track name, right-click, rename, and we'll call this electric piano. Adjust the volume to -3 dB. Select the MIDI region. Next, we'll input the following chord progression. Pause the video here and input the MIDI chords. Let's have a listen. Next, we'll shape the sound of the electric piano. Increase growl to 70%, increase attack tone to 102, and we'll increase amp to 117. Type in auto, and we'll drag our auto filter next to the electric piano basic. We'll then open our automation for electric piano. In the drop-down menu, select auto filter, then select frequency. We'll add in 2 automation points, and we'll use these points to adjust our frequency over the 8 bars. So you can see the frequency will start at about 476 Hz and it will end at 12.5. Let's have a listen. We'll then loop this over 24 bars. Step 3, we'll add in the Pluck Synth. This is a rhythmic and melodic layer that plays throughout the build and drop. We'll use MIDI track 2 and type in Zonk in our search bar and we'll drag in Zonk Pluck. Right click, rename, and we'll call this Pluck Synth. Adjust the volume to -8. Next, highlight 8 bars, right click, insert empty MIDI clip. We'll then insert the melody. Pause the video here to copy in the melody. Next, we'll adjust the sound of the synth. Click on the Pluck Synth and we'll adjust the following settings. We'll increase oscillator 1 to about 1. We'll turn on oscillator 2 and choose the square form. Bump this up 1 octave and we'll reduce this to -13 dB. Next, we'll reduce our filter, increase our res, and increase our HP. We'll then reduce the release to 728 and we'll increase our sustain to 17%. We'll then type in delay and we'll drag delay next to our instrument. We'll reduce the feedback to 12 and the dry wet to 10. Let's have a listen. We'll then duplicate this over 24 bars. Step 4, we'll add in the lead synth. Right click, insert MIDI track, right click, rename, and we'll call this lead synth. In the search menu, type in fat square and drag across fat square bass. Highlight bars 9 to 17, right click, insert empty MIDI clip. Pause the video here and input the melody for the lead synth. We'll then adjust the volume to -10, click on lead synth, and we're going to adjust our sound. We'll increase release to 655 milliseconds. Next, type in vibrato and we'll drag across vibrato flutter. Increase the rate to 8.48, reduce the amount to 10, and we'll reduce the output to 0 and the warmth to 12. We'll then reduce the dry wet to 10%. Now there's a couple of notes that we need to add at the beginning of this melody here. So highlight bar 8, right click, insert empty MIDI clip. We'll input these 4 notes at the end of bar 8. Let's have a listen. We'll then duplicate this over the next 8 bars. Now, as we're creating our build, we'll go back to our automation and we're going to automate our frequency to increase again. So we'll zoom in here and we're going to lower it back down to where it was and we'll build it back up over the next 8 bars. This will help to create that build. Step 5, we'll add in the drums. Right click, insert MIDI track. Next, insert empty MIDI clip from bar 9 to 25. Next, select drums and drag our drum rack onto MIDI track 4. Right click, rename drums. Next, we'll load in our samples. Type in kick 90s and we'll drag in kick 90s 1 to C1. Increase the volume to -10 dB. Next, type in snare 909 tune 10S and then drag this snare to D1. Increase the volume to -5 dB. Finally, type in hi-hat close 2B and we'll drag this to F sharp 1. Increase the volume to -10 dB. Next, we'll go to the MIDI editor to build out our rhythm pattern. We'll shorten our MIDI region to 1 bar and we'll add the snare in on every second beat. Zoom out and bring our cursor all the way to the end and we'll drag this to bar 1. We'll then extend this to bar 17. Zoom in a little and at bar 12.3, add a marker, right click, split. We'll also bring the cursor to bar 14, right click, split. We'll then highlight this region and add the snare in on every beat. Finally, highlight the last section and we'll add the snare in on these following beats. Zoom out and let's have a listen. We'll then shorten this snare to end at bar 16.3. Next, click on drums and we're going to shorten our snare clip. So what we'll do is we'll just drag this and shorten it. Then we'll add a fade out to soften it. Let's have a listen. Next, zoom out and highlight bar 17 to 25. Right click, insert empty MIDI clip, zoom into bar 1, add in the following rhythm pattern. Zoom out and we'll shorten this to 1 bar. This will repeat the rhythm pattern over the entire section. Let's have a listen. Step 6, we'll add in our synth stabs. These are just before bar 17. Right click, insert MIDI track. Highlight 16.3 to 17. Right click, insert empty MIDI clip. Next, in our search menu, type in Euphoria and drag in Euphoria Lead to MIDI track 5. Right click, rename Synth Stabs. Next, go into our MIDI editor and input the following chords. Pause the video here to input the following notes. Let's have a listen. Now going to shape the sound of the Euphoria Lead. Click back on the instrument and we'll make some of these adjustments. Firstly, we'll increase the octave to octave 1. Next, we'll decrease the oscillator 2 octave to 0. We'll change oscillator 2 to a square form. Next, in our search bar, type in reverb, then drag reverb next to our instrument. Decrease the wet dry signal to 40%. Don't forget to rename this track Synth Stabs. Step 7, we'll add in the riser. Right click, insert audio track. In the search bar, type in riser Whoosh Up and drag this onto our track. Reduce the track volume to -5 dB. Position the riser so that it peaks just before the stabs on bar 16. Let's have a listen. Right click on the track name and we'll call this riser. Step 8, we'll add in the synth pad. We'll use the same sound that we used for the synth stabs, so you can right click and duplicate this track. We'll then delete the MIDI region. Next, we'll rename this track and we'll call it Synth Pad. Reduce the volume to -20 dB. We'll then highlight bar 17 to 25, right click, insert empty MIDI clip. For this entire section, we'll insert an F sharp and we'll hold this over the entire section. Next, go into our synth pad and we're going to drag in a Phaser-Flanger onto this track. We'll increase the rate to 1/2 and increase the warmth to 100%. Let's have a listen. Step 9 will add in the bass. Right click, insert MIDI track, right click, rename bass. Type in basic shape bass and we'll drag this onto our bass track. Reduce the track volume to -4. Highlight bars 17 to 25, right click, insert empty MIDI clip. Pause the video here to input the following bass line. We'll repeat this over 8 bars. Next we'll shape the sound of the bass. Select the bass and type in compressor. Drag the compressor next to our bass. We'll then play the track and lower the threshold till we reach our desired sound. Next we'll add a saturator. Drag this next to our compressor. Select bass shaper, increase drive to 9.1, and we'll select soft clip. Let's have a listen. Let's have a listen from the top. So upon first listen, we need to increase our synth stabs by about 2 dB. Next we'll add in some automation so we can create some real contrast between the build and the drop. Firstly, open our main track and we'll drag an auto filter onto our main track. Next, select our high pass filter. Zoom in so you can see bar 13 to 17 clearly. Next we'll create automation points at bar 13, 16.2 and 16.3. We'll then raise the frequency at 16.2. And this will gradually remove the lows and mids, increasing tension. Let's have a listen. Next we'll add some stereo width contrast. Type in utility and drag this next to our auto filter. We'll then go back to our automation and select utility. Next select stereo width. We'll then select automation points at bar 13 and 17 and 16.3. This will decrease the stereo width during the build, which will then return at bar 17. This squeezes the mix during the drop and then makes the drop feel wide at bar 17. Let's have a listen. Now we're finished with our effects, let's have a listen from the top. You've just created the build and drop of Waiting for Love by Avicii. Now, compare your version to the original, make small tweaks, and feel free to experiment with some more effects. From here, you can expand it into a full remake or start remixing it into something new.